Hello friends, welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator and fly-by-wire Airbus A320. It's been a while since I used this aircraft and a couple people requested a tutorial on how to set up the MCDU, cold and dark start, and this tutorial is going to be about that. In fact, we are going to do another full flight with the A320. This will be a 2 or 3 part video. In the first part we will look at the cold and dark start programming the MCDU, entering our flight plan, getting her ready to taxi, and then second episode will be takeoff. We might taxi in this episode. Second episode will be takeoff, climb all the way to the cruise, and then the third episode will be descent calculation, planning for the approach, and eventually approach and landing. Alright, so we are in Tucson, Arizona with a Southwest livery, and the destination will be Los Angeles International Airport. The route is from a video I have seen on YouTube from Overkill, and I picked this route because it has some restrictions during climb on the SID, and it has a step descent for the star, and it will all make sense in a full flight to discuss everything what we need to do to descend and respect these speed restrictions and do not breach them. We will look into all those, but without further ado, let's jump into the cockpit and get started. Alright, even before turning the aircraft on, I'd like to bring up the window and take a look at SimBrief flight planning. Okay, so let's switch the screen. I will make the simulator smaller on the right hand side, and the SimBrief window is right in front of us. Obviously you fill this top part, Southwest 1452, departure is K2s, arrive is KLAX, alternate is K Ontario, and the date is today, and departure time, you can change this if you like, especially if you are using packs or self-loading cargo. This matters when you are using SimBrief to import the flight plan, because it takes that departure time to see if you will be able to depart on time. Okay, aircraft type, this is the fly-by-wire A320neo SimBrief profile. It's on their website. I'll try to put a link to the description for any of you who wants to download this SimBrief profile and use it. Over here we will use 45 minutes of contingency fuel. That will be our extra fuel if we have to loop or ATC instruct us to wait before landing. Obviously the units is going to be pounds because we are in the US, so we are using imperial system. Down below I don't touch any of this. If you like, you can change your cost index, but I'll leave it at auto and I'm not worried about this. Aircraft registration, you can change this as well if you like. This is the flight time, departure runway. We have 29er right, and we will see if this holds true when we get the ADIS information after powering the aircraft. Arrival runway is 25 left. Extra fuel we are not going to take any. Altitude is automatic. We have full passengers. We'll change the cargo and take a little bit more cargo, like let's say 30.6 tons. Zero fuel weight will stay auto, and then that's the captain's name and the pilot ID that you can use to import your flight plan into the MCDU if you like to do it that way. We will be looking at both ways of doing it. So let's generate the flight. Yes, and it will update and give us our operational flight plan. Alright, air time is 1 hour 15 minutes. It's showing us we need 14 tons 186 pounds, 14,186 pounds of fuel. We will look into all those when we are entering this information into the MCDU. So this is our OFP. it might be good idea to open this up, or we can just use the tablet to bring this over and use this to enter the information into the MCDU. Okay, so let's jump back into the cockpit and get rid of the SimBrief screen. Now we will talk about powering the aircraft. Okay, let's first turn the EFB on. Let's go to the overhead panel. First thing we do is turn on the batteries. Alright, batteries are on. We have external power available, so we will turn that on as well. We'll turn the nav lights to on to state ground crews that aircraft has power. Crew oxygen supply will turn on. EVAC will stay at captain's. You don't have to change this. I'm not sure if it's simulated yet. We'll arm the emergency signs and we'll turn the passenger signs to on, and we can get some integral lighting as well. There we go. Another thing you can do, and I believe it's done in real life, is this is the annunciation light test. So if you bring this to test, it will light everything up, and this is done to ensure all the switches have appropriate information and the lights are working and not bad or something like that. Okay, so you can turn this off, and we will turn the IRS switches to now IRS1, IRS2 and IRS3. This will make the aircraft start aligning the GPS and know its position on Earth. Next up, we will get some lights and adjust our brightness to our liking by using these knobs for the PFD and MD. These two for the flight control panel or main control panel. Some people call it MCP, some people call it FCP, so it's up to you. I call it MCP. This is for the co-pilot. We will give him some bright screens as well. These are the ECAM brightness knobs that we will use to brighten the ECAM screens and get some integral lighting here as well. You can also get some flood lighting, but it's quite bright outside. I don't think it will make any difference. Alright, let's start from here. Tablet, we will import our SimBrief plan. I'm not sure why this is not taking and changing it to inches mercury in US. It is still showing hectopascals. So I am not sure about the QNH, but we are not worried about that. What we are interested in is this, and we will go to the OFP, and that will display our OFP from SimBrief. We can fuel the aircraft from here. That might be a good thing to do at this point. We need 14.168. Let's go here. We have more than that, so we will type 14.168, and then we will start fueling or defueling in this case, because we have more than what we need. Next up is going to be the radios and listening to the ADIS and set up our QNH. We will turn Tucson ADIS on, and there we go. Altimeter is 30.01, so we will set this, and then we will do the standby, and that is going to be east. And as you see, departing runway is 29 right, so that runway information that SimBrief is giving us is correct. Right now, the active runways are for departure 29 right and left, so that is fine. Okay, so we set the QNH, aircraft is aligning the IRS, and we will jump down to the MCDU and start doing this part. Over here, I'd like to start with the init page. So we will do this manually. We will not use the init request to import it from SimBrief. If you press this, this will carry your flight plan from SimBrief, but The request for this was to do it manually because some people still don't use SimBrief, and I don't judge that, that's fine. And this is how you do it if you are not using any kind of flight plan generation service like SimBrief. Our departure is Tucson, so Kilo Tango Uniform Sierra / our arrival is Kilo Lima Alpha X-ray. We will plug this into here, and I don't know why this happens. Sometimes it does happen, but now we have our departure and destination. Flight number is Southwest Airlines 1452, I believe that's what I put in there. So 1452, yes, right there. So let's go back. 1452. We will plug the flight number here. Cost index according to our OFP is 6. So we will go and enter 6 for the cost index. Alright, so cruise flight level can be found here on SimBrief flight plan. That's flight level 340. We will enter FL, Foxtrot Lima 340. And the temperature is calculated automatically when you enter the cruise level. Alright, this part is done. There is a second page to this, but we need to do some other stuff before we can complete what's needed on the second page. Let's go and bring our flight plan page first, because I believe aircraft is still defueling. First we will select our departure. Our departure today, if we take a look at our plan, right here, Tucson, 29er right, Whiskey Lima Delta Kilo Tango 3. So that's our SID, and we know we are departing 29er right, and there is our SID. And then the transition is going to be Golf Bravo November. How do I know this? I will show you using Navigraph screen. Okay, just give me a sec to bring over the Navigraph charts. I think this should do nicely. Yes, let's transition to the Navigraph window to see it a little bit better. And as you see, this is our SID, Whiskey Lima Delta Kilo Tango 3 RNAV departure. And according to our plan, we are departing towards east-west. I'm sorry, not east-west, northwest, not what I was thinking. We are departing northwest towards Golf Bravo November. You'll see that's in our flight plan. And how I know this is our transition is we start here, and that is the last waypoint of our our SID, standard instrument departure, where we join and start the next leg of the flight. If I bring our flight plan, you will see it a little bit clearly. That is our SID, this purple line, and that is Golf Bravo November VOR. And from here, next leg of our flight starts, which means we will transition from this waypoint to the next one. That's why it's called a transition in the MCDU. Let's jump back to the MCDU. Alright, so we selected, and you read the departures from left to right. So runway 29er right via Whiskey Lima Delta Kilo Tango 3 SID with a Golf Bravo November transition. We will insert this, and now we have our waypoints populated for our SID. We will come to our last waypoint in the SID, and we have to enter the next waypoint. If we take a look at the flight plan, our next point after given is an airway. We are taking an airway to messy. So to enter an airway, as you see, there is an airways option here. We will select that and it will bring us to this window where it says via. This via is the name of the airway. Airway is always entered to the left side of the MCDU and the waypoints to the right side of the MCDU. If we go and check Juliet 104 to messy. So we will enter our airway Juliet 104 right here, and then it will ask to where. So our exit point from this airway is messy. We'll plug this in here and insert this. That's our waypoint using the airway, as you see, Juliet 104 all the way to messy. So there are 2 more waypoints on our route before we reach the exit point from that airway. From messy, if I remember, it's a direct to Eastwood, and then our star starts from there. So let's go and enter that too. To enter a direct waypoint, we'll select again our last waypoint, which is messy, and enter Echo Sierra Tango Whiskey Delta, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is correct. And you enter it to this box where it says next waypoint. And now, as you see, it's changed colors because we haven't inserted this, but we will be able to see our waypoint here, and there is no airway, so it's a direct to this waypoint. We will insert this, and now it is time for us to enter our star. We will select the arrival. We are doing an ILS to 25 left. As you see on our flight plan, that's our arrival runway. This might change due to ATC. I'm not planning to use ATC, but if you do, or if you are on an online network like VATSIM, this might change and you might not get the approach you are looking for, or even the star. Okay, we will select ILS 25 left, and our star is Hollywood 1 right here, and our transition is Cebu. How do I know this? I will show you here in a second. I'm not gonna insert this. Switch back to Navigraph. Okay, so let's bring our star and overlay this. Not overlay, just take a look. So that's Eastwood, our transition into our star. And as I said, remember, stars are always read from right to left. So from our flight plan, Eastwood is where we transition into our star Hollywood 1. Okay, and then from Hollywood 1 via Cebu, which is our next waypoint, last waypoint of our star. As you see, Eastwood is the first waypoint where we enter the star, follow, come down, and there is only one option, and it's Cebu. If this star had multiple exit points, it will depend on what runway we are going to approach, and this might change, but for this flight plan there is only one on our star, and it's Cebu, and that is our transition into our approach. So how you read this is Eastwood transition to Hollywood 1 via Cebu to ILS 25 left approach. Okay, we will insert this, and we will check our flight plan to see if there are any discontinuities. There shouldn't be, and there is not, so that's good. Before I close Navigraph, as you see, we have a lot of restrictions when we are arriving into Los Angeles. Starting with Hollywood waypoint, fly level 320 or below, and then there is another in between restriction and a speed restriction of 280 knots, another one over here, another one over here, another one, another one, another one. And I'm pretty sure our approach also does have some restrictions, which we can quickly check after selecting ILS 25 left with a CU transition. If we overlay this, you will see. So that is our transition into our approach. CU makes 270 knots. Note this. And then, well, I don't see any restrictions, but we have a step descent, as you see on the profile. Vertical profile will start with 10,000, 9, 8, 7, 5, 3,600, 1,900, and then that's our final approach fix, where we capture the glide slope and localizer to descend into the runway. Okay, we will come to this later on. Let's go back to the cockpit. We inserted this, and now our waypoint entry is done. Now we need to go and do our weights and balances to complete the second page of init. Okay, to do this we go to ATSU, AOC menu, weights and balances. You can also request this from SimBrief. How do you do this manually is on your flight plan. If I scroll down, this is our weights or load sheet. See, we have 180 passengers, 9.3 tons of cargo, 50.6 is our payload, and our our fuel is 14.2, and takeoff weight is 154.7. If I go down, oh, wrong button, down here, block fuel, we already defueled the aircraft to what we need, 14,160. We will enter that, 14,160. This is entered here. If I go back to our operational flight plan and scroll up, we will see the fuel information. As you see, that's the fuel requirements. So taxi fuel is 440. We will enter this, 440. And then the trip fuel for this trip is, as you see here, 6,127, an hour 15 minutes flight time. So we will enter that, 6127. That is our trip fuel. All right, next page, payload and passengers. Well, you can enter a total number of passengers. I think there is something wrong with the SimBrief profile because 180 is not accepted. It says out of range. If I try 178, oops, wrong, I need to delete that. 178, again out of range. I think it was 176 where it accepts. No. So here is that problem. 174. Yep, now we have the 174. So payload is showing 39.8, which is different than what we see here in SimBrief. If we scroll down, its payload is 50.6. Therefore, for this section, I usually use the SimBrief flight plan and enter this information using that. However, I'm not gonna worry about this that much, or we can just try to see if it will change if I press this button. And it didn't change anything. So we will leave with this, okay? We will leave it alone. Oh, cargo. We haven't entered our cargo. Let's see if we can enter that. 9.3. 9.3. Enter this. No, it's not taking it. Well, we will leave this here and we'll start boarding. This will start loading the aircraft or boarding the passengers, okay? So now we can go to the init and second page. Zero fuel weight and zero fuel weight center of gravity is now calculated. We can plug this in here, and the block fuel, as you see here, we have 14.16. So we will enter that here, 14.16. Right here, it will round it to 14.2, and then it will calculate everything for us over here, as you see. So that's the init page completed, and now only thing left for us is to do the performance calculations. All right, so we will be taking off with flaps 1, and the trimmable horizontal stabilizer calculation is not a thing yet, so you can leave it empty, or you can type up 0.0 or down like Delta November 0.0, and there's that. Flex temp, again, there is no calculator to calculate this accurately, but 55 is a good ballpark if you want to try out and use flex temp. This will depend on how long the runway is that you are taking off. Transition altitude for US is 18,000. We will plug this in here. And now we are ready to calculate the V speeds. V1, this is where V1 is, if you reach V1, that means no matter what, you need to take off. This is meaning that after this speed, aircraft cannot be stopped safely on the runway. Okay, that's what V1 means. We rotate, obviously, is where we start pitching up and bring the nose up to lift her from the ground. And V2 is, God forbid, if you lose an engine after this speed, you need to, the aircraft will still accelerate and climb. So that means after this speed, your only option is to accelerate and climb and go to your hold short point or contact ATC to do on what to do if you have an engine failure or any failure in that matter. Okay, so this is our performance or speed calculations done. IRS is now aligned. What we will do here is we'll turn on the constraints, okay, and we will program the MCP. For speed, we will take our V2, which is 136, add 10 knots to it, and we want selected speed, so that's 146 for our takeoff. Okay, our runway heading for runway 29er is, let me see the chart real quick, guys. Right, our runway heading is 303, so we will enter 303 here. There you go. And for our initial climb altitude, this is usually given by ATC. Okay, if I had contacted ATC and asked them for clearance, I would probably get an initial climb. As I said, we are not using ATC now. You can try it for yourself if you are planning to use the same route, and I will paste this route to the description field of the video. But on our on our SID, we have a 3,200 restriction right after takeoff, and then I don't see any other restrictions, so we can perfectly say, okay, we will initial climb is 6,000, and then ATC will clear us for higher altitudes when we get to 6,000. If you have a higher restriction on your star, like a 10,000, 9,000 or above, this would be a good time to set that, or 1,000 feet above that restriction, to make sure you are not breaching the speed restrictions. I'm sorry, speed and altitude restrictions. Alright, so that's MCP done for us, and only other thing I would like to do is turn the VOR on, go down to the radio navigation page, and then plug in the frequency for runway 29er right. Okay, so the localizer frequency for that is, let me see the chart real quick. 29er. Alright, there is the 29er. And the frequency is 111.7. 111. I am typing this because I will explain later on. This is required to get the initialization when you are on the runway. That's what I learned from the fly-by-wire Discord. Alright. So this is pretty much, guys, our MCDU programming and MCP and all the initial information entered into the MCDU. Okay, we are pretty much ready to start the engines, but let's go down to the pedestal. I want to do one more thing. We will clear this transponder code and we will plug in a transponder code and pretend like this is what's given by the ATC, and we'll turn the transponder to auto. TCAS traffic collision alert system stays at standby for now until we are ready to taxi and go to the runway. Aside from this, there is nothing we need to worry here. That switch is in the wrong position. It looks like my throttle quadrant. Someone played with it, probably my son. Alright, at this point, guys, we are ready to actually start the APU. Alright, we'll go to the overhead. We'll turn the fuel pumps on. We don't have any fuel in the center tanks. I'll show you. So that's 0. Therefore, you don't need to turn on the center fuel pumps. You can if you like to, but yeah, I think it's best to leave them off for wear and tear. In real life, I don't think they are running the center tank's fuel pumps if there is no fuel in the center tank. The other thing is these generator switches. I have seen videos there where they were off by default. I'm not sure if that's the stable version because I'm using the development. So if they are off, you need to turn these on. If they are showing off like this, you need to turn this on after engine start. And we can simulate that too. Let me turn them off. Same for the APU gen. Alright. Before starting the APU, let's do a quick fire test. There we go. And then we will turn the master switch on. 1, 2, 3. And we will hit the starter switch. And the lower ECAM will switch to APU screen. It will display flap open and the APU will start spooling. We are looking for 100% M1 and 1%. That means APU is online and generating. You can also monitor the electrical power from the electrical page here. As you see, Gen 1 is off, Gen 2 is off, APU generator is also off. Okay. When the APU starts, we'll go to the overhead and start the generator. If it's on by default, when you spawn with the aircraft at a gate, then you don't have to touch it. Okay. We'll go up and turn the APU gen on. Go down, check the electrical page one more time. And as you see, APU gen is online and it's supplying us with power. Okay. So APU is running. We can turn the APU bleed on at this point, or you can wait until you are ready to start the engines. We will turn the beacon on to let the ground crews know that the aircraft will be starting the engines shortly. Okay. And from there, I think all we need to do is, I think we are good on here. I'm just doing a final check. MCP looks good. No warnings on ECAM. TCAS standby. Predictive wind shear and weather radar stays off for now. We don't need to arm the ground spoilers at this point. They can stay disarmed, but we will arm them prior to takeoff or during taxi. Our cabin door is open, so let's call the pushback. First, let's get rid of the jetway. Okay, we assume that all the passengers are boarded. We are done with preparations and we are ready to leave the gate. By the way, this pushback program is Ambitious Pilot's Toolbar Pushback. It can be found on flightsim.to, and it's also in my spreadsheet of mods that I'm using that can be found in the video description. Alright, we will hit start pushback and you will see some good stuff here because this is updated recently.
Cockpit to ground.
As you see. So this has now audio with the ground cruise simulated, which is quite nice. I like it. Alright, we are waiting for the ground crew and they will contact us momentarily. In the meantime, we can take a look at our taxi route and where we should be pushing the aircraft. It makes it easier to show on this VFR map.
The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft.
Okay, I'm gonna show you this. See, the aircraft nose is lifting up by the tug. How nice is that?
Pushback.
So it's now lifted and the ground crew is waiting for pushback. So that is our runway 29er, so that means we are going to push the tail to the left and then take this taxiway right here into runway 29er. Okay, so which we will not do today. It will be in the next episode where we will taxi to the runway and do the takeoff and climb, because I like to keep these videos around 30 minutes. Alright, let's go and do with the pushback. We will turn the parking brake off and we will hit
Reset parking brakes.
what? Okay. Oh, you need to have the parking brakes set? I don't think you do.
Cockpit to ground.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
We are cleared for start and push.
Okay.
Parking brake set.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
We are waiting on ground crew to tell us to release the parking brake. That's why it was like
brakes
that.
are released.
Okay.
Commencing pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
Alright, so now we are pushing back. And as I said, we will push the tail to the left here in a little bit. Let's go to the overhead panel. Beacon is on, fuel pumps are on, we are ready to start the engines. We turn the APU bleed to on, otherwise you won't be able to start the engines. We'll come down here, ignition switch to ignite, and we'll start with engine number 2. And let's see here, we can ask the tug to start turning us to the left, like this, and we will monitor the M1 and N2. N2 is at 24%. We can take a look at the engine. As you see, it's spooling and the fuel is being added to the engine. We see the heat blur, so that means the engine is going to have a is starting, and it looks like it's going to have a good start. Alright. As you see, we are pushing to the left slowly, and that is the taxiway that we are planning to take. Let's take a look from outside. Not too shabby. You can correct yourself if you like with using this tag, and in the meantime use that time to start the engines. Alright, so that looks nice. Let's just push straight into that taxi line, and then we will align with the taxi line later. So engine 1 or right engine 2 is available. We'll turn the engine generator to on. Something's wrong with my... Alright, something is wrong with my throttles. It is reversed for some reason. Anyway, we will worry about those later. Alright, let me take a look outside. I think it's time to go left again. And we can start engine number 1. That is the PTU. Let's straighten the nose up. Let's tell the tug to hold, and then we will stop the pushback.
Okay, pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
We'll set the parking brake.
Parking brake set.
Parking brake set. Lowering aircraft.
Aircraft is lowered now to the ground.
Ground. Startup is complete. You may disconnect.
Roger. Good engine start. Cleared to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Holding position waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
Alright, so now the tug will dry away and we are done with the pushback. Alright guys, couple things left to do. turn the taxi lights to, or nose light to taxi rather. Okay. Engine generator 1 is on now. And now we can get rid of the APU bleed and we can turn off the APU. Over here, down below, we will turn the TCAS to TARA, and we can take a little closer look. TARA right there. Alright, predictive wind shear is now on, and the weather radar is on pilot side. At this point, we are pretty much ready to taxi to the runway. And the APU has a cool off time, so that's why it says APU available. We are seeing our tire pressures over here. We'll just go to the flight controls page here, okay, and we will do a flight controls check. Full right, center, full left, center, full forward, center, full reverse or full back, center, right rudder, center, left rudder, center, and then you can see the brake pressures as I press the toe brakes here. They are not moving, they're supposed to move, or I remember them moving at some point, but the brakes are also working as well. Alright guys, so that is the cold and dusk start and programming the MCDU for the Airbus A320neo with the fly-by-wire mod. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving a like, and if you are not a channel subscriber, please subscribe to get notified for future videos, and I will be seeing you in the next video.